Great. So a very good morning, everybody, and welcome to this morning's webinar from Demeter. So this webinar is about our second open call, which is called Deploy, and the aim of Deploy is to fund new pilots in the agri-food sector. So my name is Grania Deline. I'm the Communications Coordinator for Demeter, and I'm just going to give you an overview of the running order for this morning. So we have a number of speakers. Our first speaker is Kevin Doolan. Kevin is the Executive Director of the Walton Institute, and he is also the Demeter Project Coordinator. So Kevin is going to give an overview of the Demeter project, what exactly it is, what are our objectives, what are the challenges that we're trying to overcome, and also give us an understanding of some of the pilot projects that are currently running within Demeter. Our second speaker is Miguel Concalves from F6S, who is also the Demeter Open Calls Manager. And Miguel is going to talk to us exactly about the open call itself. What are its objectives? How do you fill in the application form? What are the criteria that need to be fulfilled in order to have a successful application? Our next speaker then is going to focus on the Demeter technical offering, and that is Yanis Okonomidis, who's from Intrasoft. And then it's going to be over to you, and you'll have an opportunity to ask some questions about Demeter or about the open call process. So we're going to manage the questions and answers through the Q&A function that you'll see here. Please feel free to pop in the questions whenever they arise during the speakers, but we will have dedicated time at the end to answer all specific questions. So in the case that we don't get to answer your questions, if we run out of time, etc., we will follow up on email, and we will also post answers to the FAQ, to the questions on the FAQ section of our website as well. So if you're looking for more information about Demeter or about the open call process, I just want to point you in the following directions. So on our website, we do have a dedicated section about the open call, going through our objectives, the Demeter methodologies and technologies. So feel free to pop on that. If you have any specific questions, please feel free to email Miguel, our open call manager, at opencalls@h2020-demeter.eu. We're quite active on social media as well, so please follow us on Twitter, LinkedIn, and Facebook. We also have a YouTube account, and we are recording today's webinar, and we will post a link to the recording to all participants following the webinar. We also have a SlideShare account, so we will be posting the presentations from this morning on that as well. If you're interested in learning about Demeter and how the project progresses, please feel free to sign up for our quarterly newsletter, and we will send you details of all of this following this morning's webinar. So best of luck, all of you, with your applications. And without further ado, I'm going to hand you over to Kevin Doolan, who's going to give you an overview of Demeter. Thanks, Kevin.
Thanks, Grania. Good morning, everybody. Let me just start my presentation here. So hi, everyone. My name is Kevin Doolan, and I'm the coordinator of Demeter. And I just want to give you a very quick introduction to the context of the project, the broad scope of what it's about, and as Grania said, some of the challenges we're addressing and the objectives within the project to address those. First of all, to kind of position Demeter, it was funded under the calls that are looking at digitizing European industry, particularly around the area of partnerships and platforms. And on this slide here, you can see the various projects that were funded under those calls that relate to agricultural technology. And as you can see, Demeter has been positioned under the technology development alongside our sister project, Atlas. You could argue, though, we're also engaged a lot in terms of the uptake of agricultural technology, particularly through some of the partners that we have within the project and through our open calls, which we're going to talk a little bit about this morning. So in a nutshell, Demeter is a 60 partner project with a total budget of about 17.5 million euro. And we're spread across 18 different countries. The crux of Demeter is about enabling interoperability from farm to fork, essentially along the agricultural supply chain. And within that, then we build a number of enabling technologies, which I believe Yanis will be talking a little bit about later on. And these enabling technologies support the interoperability across the supply chain. To verify the technologies that we've built or we are building, we have 20 different in-house pilots within the project covering 5 different agricultural sectors. I'll talk about those in a few minutes. Our pilot work covers about 320,000 hectares of land, and we've about 5,500, 6,000 farmers engaged in the project. What's also very important is we have a global outreach for the project in terms of our dissemination and communication, and that's particularly enabled through the involvement of the World Farmers Organization. And that's an important point to note, that if you're putting in a proposal towards our open call, the potential audience you can reach from participating in Demeter's open call is quite vast, actually. We also have a very much multi-actor approach within Demeter, where we try and engage farmers and other ag tech stakeholders, again, from across the supply chain, throughout the project in terms of setting out our requirements, validating results, and so on. So when we originally came up with the idea for Demeter, we identified a number of challenges that need to be addressed. And the first of these, and this is based on what's going on obviously in the agricultural sector in Europe. The first challenge is about putting farmers in control of the knowledge that they can get from the data that's relevant to their specific requirements and activities. So really moving away from the current situation in where farmers can be completely overwhelmed by the sheer amount of data, to a situation where they can benefit from the insights that data can give them. And this is really important because as we progress further and further about Internet of Things and big data, it is possible for farmers or any other stakeholders to get overwhelmed by the amount of raw data that they can be faced with. The second challenge that we look at is related to our deployment model. And this is really in the context of where the lifespan of agricultural technology can extend in many cases, of over 20 plus years. So that means any, solutions and innovations that we create need to be deployed over existing machines. My lights have just turned out for some reason. So really protecting the existing investments that are made by farmers while we're making them part of a digitally enriched environment is a critical driver for Demeter. The third challenge then is linked to the optimal analysis of data. So if we want to take into account that for any useful trends or patterns to emerge from data, there's really a need to work on a very large sets of data that can be obtained across multiple different farms. And in this context, we need to get the full value from that data. We need to create, trusted cooperation spaces, as we call them, in which data can be collected and shared and taken into account any conflicting interests, competition, and so on, but also ensuring that we put farmers fully in control of their rights and their data so that they can maximize the data that they generate from the technological solutions that are deployed on their various different farms. The fourth challenge then is to overcome market barriers. So in a context where quite often large players have aimed early on to establish themselves in dominant positions through supplier-oriented technological and data platforms. This effectively increases the lock-in of farmers to sometimes single or selected groups of suppliers, and it limits their access to innovation, creating an innovation ecosystems for SMEs and entrepreneurs. So we're trying to overcome or break those market barriers as well by creating more open solutions and more modular solutions that can be combined from various different suppliers and stakeholders to meet the farmers' needs. And then the fifth challenge, and it's last but definitely not least, is around interoperability and the adoption of technological standards that we can ensure compatibility, so that we can ensure data exchange and communication standards that can link to all these different systems together into a unified system that covers all aspects of agricultural exploitation. And again, so essentially this is the farm to fork integration and interoperability that I mentioned at the very start. To address these challenges then, within Demeter, we've got a number of key objectives. The first one is to analyze, adopt, and enhance, and if necessary, introduce new information models in the agri-food sector that will ease data sharing and interoperability across multiple devices and farm management systems and so on. And to do that, actually, within Demeter, we have the Agricultural Information Model, AIM, which should be mentioned a little bit later on. We also want to build knowledge exchange mechanisms so we can deliver what we call our interoperability space for the agri-food domain, where we can present different technologies and data from different vendors. We can ensure their interoperability and using open standards combined with carefully planned security and privacy protection mechanisms to ensure that this knowledge exchange can take place as a result of the technological deployments. Again, we want to empower the farmer as a prosumer to be able to gain control over in the data food chain by being able to identify and demonstrate a series of new IoT-based data-driven business models within Demeter for profit, for collaboration, and for co-production for farmers right across the value chain. And we hope and plan that these will lead to new and disruptive value creation models, again, for multiple stakeholders. We're also establishing benchmarking mechanisms for agriculture-related solutions and businesses, which will target things like end goals in terms of productivity, sustainability, performance on farms, benchmarking the services, technologies, and practices. And this is based on a set of key performance indicators that are relevant to the farming community. So we've engaged a lot with the farming community and relevant stakeholders to see what are those KPIs and what values we should be targeting to hit when we're looking at our benchmarking systems for that. We also want to reverse the relationship with suppliers by deploying innovative models in which suppliers are responsible for ensuring that a final solution is optimal to the specific farmer's existing context and their expressed needs. And we have mechanisms in place like the Stakeholder Open Collaboration space within Demeter, where farmers can specify the problem that they have and other stakeholders and suppliers can specify the solutions that they may have to that problem. And then finally, we want to be able to, obviously we're doing all of this technological development within Demeter. It's quite a complex project, as I said, of 60 different partners working on various different technological aspects. So we want to be able to demonstrate the impact of our digital innovations across a variety of sectors and at a European and actually global level as well. And to do that, then we have, as I mentioned earlier, the set of pilots that we're currently running within Demeter. And by the way, you can get more detailed information on each of these pilots on the Demeter website that Grania showed a little bit earlier on. But just to give you a flavor for it, within the project, we've organized our pilots into 5 broad categories, as you can see on the slide, and each has a different focus. So in terms of arable crops, just for example, we're looking at water and energy management. So looking at things like smart energy management in irrigated crops, or for example, optimal rice irrigation. Also related to the arable crops sector, we're doing a lot of work around precision farming. And this focuses on things like in-service agricultural machinery condition monitoring, or data brokerage and decision support systems. In the fruit and veg sector, we're looking at, for example, crop health and quality. And again, here, for example, we've got decision support systems for olive growers. In the livestock sector, we're looking around animal health. We've got dashboards for dairy farmers. We've dashboards for the meat production chain as well. And then our last kind of, we have a kind of a catch-all grouping of pilots, which is cross-sectoral. And in here, we have things like, for example, pollination optimization in apiculture, or enabling transparency in the poultry industry supply chain. So as you can see, quite a broad set of pilots that we have running within Demeter. And as I said just a minute ago, the point of having it that broad is to ensure that we cover as many different sectors and scenarios as possible when we build our solutions. So that's Demeter in a very quick nutshell. I'm putting up my own contact details there, kevin.doolan@waltoninstitute.ie. If anybody wants to contact me, if you have any questions or want any more details about the currently running project. But what I want to do now is hand over to Miguel to talk about this second open call. And just to make the point again that these open calls they're very critical for projects like Demeter to be able to demonstrate that the technology that we develop in-house, as we call it, can be used and deployed externally and in other contexts as well. So we're really looking forward to seeing some innovative applications. And Miguel, I will hand over to you.
Thank you very much, Kevin, and good morning to our more than 100 attendees here at the webinar today. So I'm Miguel Gonçalves, I'm a project manager for F6S, and I'm the open call manager in the Demeter project. So let's start with the open call goals. We want to increase the outreach of the Demeter value propositions, and we want to do that by funding with grants up to 150,000 euros. So this funding is equity free, it's a lump sum, and has a funding rate of 100%. So it's not based on reimbursement of invoices or timesheets. It's based on the evaluation of the deliverables, KPIs, and etc., and achievements of each of the pilots to be funded. So it's quite attractive. And we want to give this funding to small consortia of 2-3 partners, not less and not more. And we will see what kind of partners can be those in a few slides. And we want to fund the development and the deployment of high-value pilots in the agri-food sector. You can eventually be inspired by the pilots that were presented by Kevin, replicate them, or propose totally new pilots in the agri-food sector. And as Kevin also said, we want to make sure that the technologies and methodologies that have been built within the project are used in those to be funded pilots. But we want to make sure that we have a bottom-up approach and not a top-down approach. We want to build and deploy technologies, not for the sake of it, but for addressing clear farmers' problems, farm managers' challenges. And we want to help real people with real needs facing real challenges here. So this is why it is important to involve the end users right at the beginning of the pilots and having checkpoints with them throughout the whole process. And we will speak a little bit more about this because it relates with the multi-actor approach that is being implemented within Demeter. So we are also looking for, we have a particular focus on EU geographic regions not represented within Demeter pilots. So as Kevin said, we have 20 pilots across 18 European countries, and we are looking for, well, the goal of the open call is to increase the outreach of the Demeter value propositions. We are looking to reach out to the new geographic regions, countries that are not yet represented within Demeter pilots, and we'll present a full list in a few slides after. So the overall goal, of course, is to expand the technological and business coverage of the Demeter project and to digitalize and boost the European agro-business. It's a very important question, who can apply? So we're looking, as I said, to a consortium of 2 or 3 partners, and we are looking for complementary consortia. So at least one of the partners should have a tech provider integrated role in the consortium, and another one should be an end user, or at least work with farmers or farm managers in a daily basis. So we want to make sure that we have these 2 components in each of the consortium that apply for the open call. And this consortium should be always led by a for-profit SME. So in terms of type of beneficiaries, who can apply? Micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises by the European Commission definitions. So usually we are talking about enterprises with less than 250 employees, and also with a turnover under or equal to 50 million, or a balance sheet under or equal to 43 million. And secondary and higher education establishments, research institutes, and other not-for-profit research entities can also apply and join an SME to build a consortium. And from where should those entities be? Well, they can be from any member state of the European Union, including their outpost regions, overseas countries and territories linked to EU member states, H2020 associated countries, and United entities from the United Kingdom are also eligible for this call. Only one note: applicants cannot be Demeter consortium partners or affiliated with them. So let's build some scenarios here just to explain a little bit how it works. So are, for example, two SMEs eligible to build a consortium and apply? Yes, they can. So you don't have to, in each consortium, involve a secondary higher education establishment, etc. Two SMEs or three SMEs can compose a consortium and apply for the open call. You just have to make sure that at least one of them has the role of tech provider and the other one has the end user role. Can, for example, two universities build a consortium and apply? No, because they are not. The consortium will be not led by a for-profit SME. So you should always have an SME leading the consortium, and make sure that you have a tech provider role and the end user role, and it will be okay. And of course, consortium made of one SME and one university can also be eligible for this call. So that was about who can apply. We also mentioned that we have a particular focus on EU geographic regions not currently represented within Demeter pilots. So Kevin showed you a map of Europe covering the countries where we actually have pilots. This here in this slide is the list of the countries that are not yet covered. So we are particularly looking for new pilots to be deployed in this country. So how does this mix up with the list that we are showing here? So it means that, for instance, a consortium from two Spanish SMEs, they are member states of the European Union, of course, they are eligible for the call. But if they develop their pilot in Spain, they will still be eligible, because we say that we have a particular focus on EU geographic region not currently represented with Demeter pilot, but they will not score so high in the impact, excellence and impact criteria. So if we are looking for, if this consortium of two SMEs from Spain will be looking to deploy a pilot in France, they will definitely have a higher score in the excellence and innovation criteria. So this is just an example. We had received other questions from potential applicants. I will share with you one example. One Irish company wanted to build a consortium with a company from the Netherlands. And actually, the Irish company will be the tech provider, and the company from the Netherlands will be the ones deploying the pilot with end user, and that's totally fine. They will, because Netherlands is actually a country where we are looking for to deploy new pilots. So this is how you should read this in terms of eligibility. Any of the entities from these geographic regions are eligible, but they will have higher scores if they propose to deploy a pilot in these countries. So objectives and challenges to address, they were well, heavily explained by Kevin in detail, but just to mention and focus on addressing specific farmers' needs. This should be really what defines the technical developments and requirements to be developed in each one of the pilots. Let's talk a little bit about the multi-actor approach. So what it is? Well, it aims to make innovation fully demand-driven. So again, it's not a top-down approach, it's a bottom-up approach. We should start with the problems and build technologies and solutions to address them. So it changes the narrative from designing for to designing with especially with the stakeholders involved, with who faces the challenge in a daily basis. And so how the new pilots should implement the multi-actor approach? Well, they must include farmers at the earliest stage of design and development, but also throughout their development, they should regularly be in contact with end users to, in a lean methodology, develop their solutions. So this will be assessed on each one of the proposals submitted to the open call. The selected proposals will work with Demeter for a period of 12 months, so 1 year, in 3 phases. So the design phases will take 2 months to engage again with farmers to gather their needs, and that will feed the development of technical requirements, to fine-tune the pilot planning that was proposed in the application and technology usage with the Demeter experts. So you'll be able to work with the Demeter partners and fine-tune your pilot proposal, and prepare follow-up and monitoring documents to evaluate the pilot progress. So after that, we will start the install and operate phase for 8 months. It will be the critical phase of each pilot to be funded, where you will deploy the methodologies and technologies in the field, configure units and software, initiate operations, collect relevant data, and have a continuous feedback loop with users. And at the end of the open call activities will be the assess phase for 2 months, where you'll be able to demonstrate your pilot, aggregate results on technologies, assess impact, communicate achievements, and build an exploitation plan. So we are looking here for good results of pilots that can be replicated across other European regions, and that can be also sustainable. That will be the best goals. So in terms of funding available, as mentioned in the beginning, we are offering grants up to 150,000 euros per consortium. It's a funding rate of 100%. It's equity free. It's based on your deliverables, not on invoices and timesheets. So that's why it's lump sum. And there's a maximum amount of funding per consortium partner of 100,000 euros. And the payments will be associated with each phase. So we have here an example for a pilot that requested the maximum amount of 150,000 euros. That funding support will be split in 3 phases, with 20% for the design phase, 60% for install and operate, and 20% for the final phase called assess. So how to apply? This is very important because you have until the 16th February to prepare your application. So you should go to the website. There's a page dedicated to the open call available. On that page, on the resources and download section, you will have access to the guidelines for applicants, which are the terms and conditions of this open call. And you also have the technical information. It's a document that explains what are the technologies, what is the Demeter technical offering that is available for you. You should read it and select the technologies that you will be able to use in your pilot to make sure that you comply with the requirement of using Demeter technologies. So after reading those 2 documents, you should start writing your proposal. and using the official template. Why should you do that? Because this template is particularly structured in a way that each section corresponds to an evaluation criteria. So it's very important that you follow the rules that are written in the proposal template, and to make sure that the external evaluators that will be involved in the evaluation of the proposal have all the information needed to evaluate what you are proposing. We are also requesting 2 documents, so a consortium declaration of honor that has to be signed by the members of the consortium, where, among other things, you will be indicating what is the split of the budget and the responsibility of each consortium partner. And we are also requesting a SME declaration for each SME being part of each consortium. It's a self-assessment on the compliance with the SME definition. So having prepared those 3 documents, the official template, the consortium declaration of honor, and the SME declaration, you should go to F6S and submit your application before the deadline. And on this application form, you will be requested a few more administrative details, but not a lot of information needed to prepare for this part. So just to give you an overview of the flow of information. So after submitting your proposal on F6S, we will have an eligibility check to see if each proposal complies with the eligibility criteria. The ones that are eligible will be evaluated on the remote evaluation by at least 2 experts in the agri-tech field. The best ones will be invited to an interview when they will be able to pitch their project. And after the online interviews, we will have a consensus meeting where the evaluators will create a ranking list of all the proposals, where the best ones will be invited to a pre-selection phase and invited to sign a sub-grant agreement to start their activities and work with the Demeter project. In terms of evaluation criteria, there are 4 groups that will be assessed: excellence and innovation, impact, implementation, and value for money. And let's see what are the sub-criteria under each one of them. So for excellence and innovation, we are looking for if the project scope is aligned with the Demeter challenge and objectives. And also if the pilots focus on EU countries not represented within existing Demeter pilots, the innovation degree and level of integration with Demeter, so the use of Demeter technologies and methodologies, and also the multi-actor approach that is described on the proposal, and the quality, credibility, and clarity of pilot project descriptions. In the impact criterion, we are looking for the potential for the outcomes to be adopted or to be used or to be streamlined by farmers and farm managers in existing practices, the ability to strengthen the competitiveness and growth of companies by developing innovations meeting the needs of European and global markets and by delivering such innovation to the markets, and the effectiveness of the proposed measures to exploit and disseminate the project results. So as you can see from these 2 bullet points, it's very important to produce solutions close to the market that can be used by farmers and farm managers. So we don't specify any TRL level in the guidelines for applicants, but we are definitely looking for project that at the end of the implementation, at the end of the 12 months of implementation, will be at least at TRL 6. So, but I will say that the higher, the better. So for the implementation criterion, we are looking for the appropriateness of the skills and expertise of the project delivery team, the coherence and effectiveness of the work plan, including appropriateness of allocation of tasks and resources. And last, the value for money, where we compare the expected costs with the resources to be assigned to the project. So in terms of timeline, the call is open until 16th February 2022 at 17 Central European Time, Brussels time. So we expect to run the evaluation and selection in February, start the contracting process in March. So we are able to have a kickoff event with the selected projects in April, and conclude the design stage in May, and the install and operate stage will run between June and January 2023, and finally the assess stage will end in March 2023. So those are tentative dates for almost all the stages. Only the open call closure is fixed to the 16th of February. So make sure you apply before the deadline. And why you should apply? So we are offering obviously grants up to 150,000 euros, as I said, equity-free lump sum based on your deliverables and your achievements. In terms of APR, you are the sole proprietor of your IP. We don't take any equity or IP rights from your development. You will have access to top methodologies and the technologies that were produced within the Demeter project, and you will work with Demeter agri-tech experts. And as you saw, we have 60 partners in this project, so you will definitely join a vibrant ecosystem, and you will have the opportunity to shape the future of agriculture. But also, as Kevin mentioned, we have quite significant power in terms of outreach with the farmer association that we involve in the project. So your solution will be definitely well known in the space. So just as a final slide to share with you 5 tips for a successful application. You should read those 2 very important documents, the guidelines for applicants and technical information that are available on the Demeter website. You can also check the frequently asked questions when we have a set of frequently asked questions prepared for you. We are also receiving questions on the online Q&A, where any potential applicant can ask questions, and everyone can see the answers that are written from the consortium. And you should definitely use the official proposal template to write your proposal and apply before the deadline. This is an automatic system. At specified hour, it will be impossible to submit. After the specified hour, it will be impossible to submit your application. So thank you very much. Looking forward for your questions. We will answer them all after the technical presentation that will be done by my colleague Yanis. So handing over to you, Yanis. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Miguel. Let me first share my screen. Okay, I think you can also see me now.
Yeah.
Yes.
Correct. Okay. Good. So my name is Yannis Economidis from Intrasoft International. This is an overview of the reference architecture and the reference implementation we have in Demeter. So let's start by going to the reference to the key concepts of the Demeter reference architecture. This figure presents these main concepts. You can see centrally central to the whole architecture, you will have the Demeter Enabler Hub, the DEH. This module centralizes the full description of all the components, the devices, the services, data sources, the platforms that are accessible for the users to exploit and to deploy, and also provides the tools and facilities that allow to compose Demeter-enabled applications and systems from the various enablers that are registered. The enablers is something that I will describe a little bit later. So along with the DEH, we have the Demeter Brokerage service environment, which facilitates a Demeter-enabled application by providing information. This is something that we will also discuss a little later. And then a access control server that provides part of the security authentication. Both of these modules are included in the implementation space, as you can see in the right part of this figure. On top of them, all the D8s and related tools are developed and accessed via the appropriate dashboards that are being offered by Demeter. This is why the dashboard spans across these two spaces. And you can also see the stakeholders open collaboration space on the left, the SOCs, which focuses on resolving the needs of the farmers and provides an endpoint for them to access Demeter. I will move on to the next slide. So this is, you can see a high-level overview of the architecture of the Demeter reference architecture. And in order to facilitate the interoperability, which is the main focus of Demeter, and interoperability between the various enablers of the architecture, a key component is the agriculture information model, the AIM. You can see it here on the bottom. I will say more about this. This is to provide the common data model for the Demeter enhanced entities, and which is interoperable with the best known ontologies and models used in agriculture knowledge information systems. So the architecture you can see here consists of the services that are available for Demeter from Demeter providers and to Demeter consumers. We can start from the bottom, and you can see all the resources. This is not part of Demeter. This is what is being offered from, let's say, entities, farmers from the smart farming platforms and systems. That's also include public resources, etc. And we move on to the central part, which is what Demeter, where Demeter focuses on the interoperability by using these several modules and also the AIM common data format with the use of lightweight data wrappers and translators. On the top of this high-level architecture overview, we have the applications that are built on top of these interoperability mechanisms and tools. I will spend no longer on the high-level overview. I will go directly to the positioning of the main elements in Demeter reference architecture. You can see the main elements in this figure, which is the SOCs, the DEH, and the AIs, and also you can see the access control part on the side. So the Demeter enhanced entities are basically all the applications that using the Demeter agriculture information model, the AIM, and by accessing the brokerage service environment, they are turned into the Demeter enhanced entity. So services, applications, things enhanced with Demeter parts, let's say, they are turned into Demeter enhanced entities, form Demeter enabled application that can access the several parts of Demeter. The infrastructure and tools that we have in Demeter are only for the consortium, so this is not included in the technical offering. Of course, on top of the SOCs and the DEH, we have the dashboard. That's the entry point for users and developers. The AIS, and specifically the brokerage service environment tool, has no dashboard, but it provides API for its functionality. So when it comes to deploying the applications, the Demeter applications in the Demeter context, we have the brokerage service environment and DEs, the Demeter Enhanced entities that can be deployed from a cloud to edge or to local infrastructure. So the BSCs is the components that coordinate the discovery and execution of the running DEs. So you can see that the DEs can either connect to a public BSC or to a local BSC, or this is customizable according to the needs. And they can use, these applications can use services that are already registered in these BSCs or to other BSCs. So any running services can be discovered from BSCs that are remote, with the assistance, of course, of the Demeter Enabler Hub, which is always central. So I mentioned the enablers, the Demeter enablers. So enablers are basically split into, they fall into two categories. We have the mandatory core enablers, which are shown in this slide, and to the optional advanced enablers, which I will show in the next slide. The core enablers provide the key functionality that is needed in every Demeter application, and therefore they must be included in every application. These include enablers for functional and semantic interoperability, which work on top of the existing resources, for example, platforms, devices, services, or applications. And they provide data wrappers that allow the resource to interoperate with the other enablers. Second, we have another core enabler that is the access control enabler, which is used, for example, to prevent access to unauthorized entities. And we have the last type of core enabler, which is a client, a DH client for the Demeter Enabler Hub. This is for any information that needs to be communicated with DH runtime facilities, for example, to get the computing resources usage by other enablers, which would be important, for example, when running Demeter Enabler hubs. Then we have the agriculture information model, the AIM, which consists, I remind, this is a part of the semantic interoperability enabler. This consists of 5 main parts. It's a core meta model, cross-domain ontology, domain-specific ontologies, pilot-specific ontologies, and metadata schema. Information about this can be is included in the documents that Miguel mentioned earlier, and I will not go into details because I have not been very involved in the development of this, so I don't want to mislead you or provide any information that's not correct. So I will move to the access to the specific modules and main modules of the Demeter reference implementation. This is about the access control server and the access control enabler. These are bound together, and you can they are available on a specific link you can see on the top of the slide. And the module provides authentication, authorization, and traceability functionality. The latter is optional for Demeter application services and user registration process. For the other main elements, for the BSC, for the DH, for the SOCs, provides fine-grained access control mechanisms, and as I mentioned, the traceability agent and another REST API, which are optional and are used to keep record of the user's activities when accessing Demeter resources, and for logging and retrieving details of the authentication and authorization tokens. The access control enabler is split into sub enablers, let's say, so sub modules, and they are implemented as libraries written in different languages and provide authentication by username and password, for example, refresh authentication functionalities, or revoke, and easy ways in general to interact with the REST APIs that's exposed by the access control server module. So this is about the Demeter Enabler Hub core module, which is represents the digital space that's dedicated to technically capable end users of Demeter. And there they are able to create and register their own resources. Well, actually, users have two roles. They can act as Demeter providers or Demeter consumers. A provider is able to offer and manage resources, components, services, data sources, etc. And the consumers are able to browse it and find resources that match their requirements. These two screenshots are for show how this platform, let's say, look like, and you can access it on the link that's shown on the top of the slide. The Demeter Enabler Hub client enabler is another core component of Demeter Enabler Hub, is the accompanying enabler. The core functionality of this enabler is to communicate with the Docker host, where the DH enablers will be deployed as containers over a secure channel, and to generate resource consumption metrics of all the DH resources deployed. And the generated metrics are then sent back to the DH periodically with using the API of the main module. The communication, of course, is established through secured channels using OpenSSL. More details can be found, of course, in the documents. Another core module is the Brokerage Service Environment, BSE. This is a core module of Demeter architecture, again, which facilitates the registration, discovery, and ultimately the communication process for the Demeter enabled resources in a secure and privacy-preserving manner. The framework of Demeter, a resource coupled with the necessary enablers, core and advanced, is named the Demeter Enhanced Entity, as I mentioned, the DE. And the DE, once authenticated and authorized by the BSE, can then register as a service with the BSE specific registry. And then it can becomes discoverable by all the other registered DEs and also by other BSEs that are available. And finally, based on the suitable core and advanced enablers, each DE can implement it, that each DE implement and the resource provisioning information from the BSE, the DEs can communicate directly with one another. The BSE is implemented as a self-contained application. That's why in the deployment slide I showed earlier, you can see that there are many different setups. And this enables an external party to deploy it as a complete brokerage service solution. But each Demeter enabled application should utilize at least one BSE. This is just to mention before I go to the next slide that the functional interoperability enabler is another core enabler of Demeter, but this is bundled with the BSE module. So the functionality it offers, the compatibility check is already integrated, and you don't have to deploy or integrate your own service with this enabler. So I will also mention some things about the stakeholder open collaboration space. This is a digital space that's dedicated to all Demeter stakeholders, to the farmers, to the advisors, and also to the suppliers. And there they can collaborate, share knowledge and best practices, and participate in the, what also Miguel and Kevin mentioned as the co-creation process. That's part of the MAA methodology. The SOX provides the access point of the Demeter ecosystem, and through the SOX, all the Demeter stakeholders are able to interconnect in the unified digital community to find new contracts, share best practices, as I said, facilitate the emergence of new collaborations, find updates on relevant topics, learn from others, innovate, promote themselves, and create the basis for new businesses acquire new skills and technologies, and also meet farmers' requests and needs. This also is accompanied with a graphical user interface, which is the access point for its users. Now, I mentioned before the Demeter Advanced enablers, and let me also, okay, these are optional, and but in truth, they provide all this functionality that's tailored to specific needs, and they basically add this extra value, and which is very important for when developing applications that's targeting farmers and their needs. They are optional, give additional functionality for this type of application. They are discoverable and accessible through the Demeter Enabler Hub, the DEH. And the ones developed for Demeter pilots fall under several distinct categories. We have the data and knowledge enablers, which are responsible for collecting and curating data from the various sources that Demeter developers and stakeholders have been registered for. We have the data preparation and integration enablers, which curate, prepare, integrate, and link the data obtained. While we have the knowledge extraction enablers that handle matters related to data quality assessment, fusion of data collected from heterogeneous sources, targeted data analytics applicable to specific pilots, and machine learning. And we have other enablers that have been developed, for example, for decision support, performance monitoring and benchmarking, and as well as a visualization enabler that convey the information and actions taken automatically to the final users of the Demeter applications. This is an example of how the pilot from Demeter maps to the reference architecture that I showed in the beginning of this slide stack. We have a pilot 1.3. Doesn't matter what it really does. We have, for example, as you can see, we have all the mandatory facilities that are being used. They have to be used. They have specific advanced functionality from advanced enablers used in their stack, and they have built these applications that are tailored to their specific needs for decision support system for irrigation, real-time monitoring, and water supply control and irrigation systems coordinator to be offered to their users. This is something. This is how all pilots in Demeter mapped their activities and their let's say modules and developments to the reference architecture that was built for Demeter. Now I have well, I have compiled a list with the available advanced enablers to the point that at the moment that I have made prepared these slides. To be honest, I think that this list will be extended further. So this will be updated also as the project progresses as well. I will not go through them. They're all described in the documentation, and if you have specific questions for any of them, we can or redirect you to the appropriate person for that. Last but not least is the existence of a Gitlab repository. We have for the previous open call, we have prepared the group for the participants in the open call 1. There we had documentation and other material useful for Demeter modules and enablers. We had an issue tracker for reporting issues that were managed tracked by coaches, but then the appropriate persons could jump in and solve any questions or address any issues. One note is that the open call participants cannot get access to the Demeter internal groups and repositories, and the access to this GitLab Open Call 2 group is provided upon request via email. Once, of course, you get the green light to proceed with your proposal and project, and as I said, only accepted projects can request access. I think that was my last slide. Yes. So I think Miguel or someone else can take over from me.
That's great, Yanis. Thank you for that. We've quite a number of questions that we've been sent in on the chat, and a number of them have been answered, and those answers would be put up on the Open Call website. There's just a few open questions I'd like to see could we cover off. The first one, it says, is the pilot demonstration in the assess phase focused on demonstration to external stakeholders, or to pilot the final version of the integrated system in real conditions?
Yeah, I can take that one. So yes, the pilot demonstration should be done in the assess phase, and the final version of the pilot should be concluded in the second phase, the install and operate. So for you to be able to focus on exploitation and demonstration on the 2 last months, that will be the best thing.
And it should be in real conditions, right? The demonstration.
It should be on real condition, yes.
Yeah, because just so people know, this is an innovation action project rather than a research and innovation action. So it's less research and more integration.
Yeah, there was another question regarding this, if the project could start as a research. Well, at the end of the 12 months, we are looking for deployment in real conditions, and at least, well, it is expected at least to reach the TRL 6. So we are not really looking for a specific TRL at the beginning. We are looking at the end, but of course, if you start with the very low TRL, it will be very hard to reach out higher TRLs at the end. So the higher you start, the better.
Thanks, Miguel. There's a second question there. I think you're already typing an answer to it about the eligibility of Albania.
Yeah, I can answer that. So Albania is on the list of H2020 associated countries. So we definitely welcome applicants for Albania.
Next, maybe for Yanis, the level of integration with already existing Demeter technology. Can you please give an example? I think you gave that at the end of your slide set, where you showed an example of some of the integrations there.
The level of integration with already existing Demeter technology. Of what? Oh, I mean, you mean of the existing pilots? I assume that this is.
No, I think the question means how much do they need to integrate with existing Demeter technology?
Okay. For once, I think that with the core modules and enablers, this is mandatory. And for the advanced enablers, I assume that everyone will need some of them at least. So if this can be done without any of the advanced enablers already provided, well, I assume this is okay. I'm not sure how efficient that would be, but I don't think, why not?
If I can add something, I will say that the higher the integration and the use of Demeter technology, the better you will score in the excellence and innovation criteria.
Yeah, that was also presented by you, Miguel, yes.
Do our end users and stakeholders need to use Demeter socks?
I will answer the same thing. The more you use the Demeter offering technical ecosystem, the better. But we are not choosing for each applicant which one should be used. You should look at the technical offering, the annexed 3 document and see what makes sense for your pilots. And the more you use of it, the better.
There's a question then on similarities with FIWARE. Yeah, I mean, the technological structure of Demeter is similar structurally to FIWARE, but we don't include, let's say, FIWARE software under the hood in Demeter. However, in our agricultural information model, which we can upload presentations on as well, we do provide integrations with the information models that come from FIWARE. So there's a question here. Could we please explain again the functional scope that could be proposed, and more specifically, could carbon farming projects be proposed? Yeah, I don't see any reason why not, as long as you're using the Demeter technology under the hood for projects like that. I think they can be proposed. So,
in terms of scope, if I may add, we are receiving questions if pilots in the aquaculture could be eligible. They're actually out of the scope. We are focusing on agriculture. Just to share this.
Yeah. Miguel, do you know, is Moldova eligible?
I don't know the list by heart, but I think, well, you can definitely check section 6.3 on the guidelines for applicants. But yes, Moldova, it's an H2020 associated country, so we welcome applicants from Moldova.
Okay, and the last question here, by how much are applicants from countries which are already involved in Demeter projects disadvantaged? It's hard to put a figure on it, right? I mean, we would prefer to see additional countries coming on board with these projects. If you're a participant in a country that exists in the project, it would be good to bring in partners from outside the current set of countries.
Exactly. So you are still eligible, but you are in the excellence in innovation criteria. You will have an higher score if you propose to deploy a pilot in a country where we don't have yet pilots.
Yeah. We see there's a lot of focus on farmers. Will the inclusion of more actors from the value chain be a plus or a minus? We need to include as many farmers as we can in deploying these technologies, and that's part of a multi-actor approach, but that doesn't stop anybody from including other actors on the value chain. You know, if there's farmers there as your end users and you have other stakeholders, I would see that as a plus.
Definitely.
Okay. Any more? No, and just so you know, this webinar video will be online, Miguel, right? And the presentations and so on.
Yes, it is online, it will be recorded. May I just read some of the questions that was already answered, because
go first.
Online people can, well, I'm talking to our YouTuber viewer. I'm just picking what I think is a relevant question. Should the applicants be from the same country? They don't need to be from the same country. There's no requirement for that. So they can be from the same country. There's no problem. Can the consortium of SME led by an SME and user farmer? Do the user need to be an SME or can be a large farm producer? So large enterprises are not eligible for this call. I'm just checking if there is another typical question. Do we need to include Demeter previously developed technology? We already answered that. The more you use the Demeter technology, the better. And I think that's it. Oh yeah, we have a really good one about can we subcontract entities? So the idea is that subcontract is not encouraged by Demeter. So as a general rule, applicable to the Demeter project, beneficiaries must have the appropriated resources to implement the full set of tasks needed within the project. So this means it's not allowed to subcontract key parts of your project. And that will be it, Kevin. You are muted.
Yeah, so I was just saying we've reached the end of the questions. Unless there's anything else, I think we can probably wrap it up. So thanks everybody. It's great to see so many people dialed in at the start of 2022 into a webinar. I would have thought everybody was webinar fatigued at this stage. We're really looking forward to seeing some of the applications that come in, and feel free to send in any questions you might have, and we'll try and get back to everyone as quickly as possible. But please bear in mind that the hard deadline that Miguel spoke about a little bit earlier on. So I just want to say thanks to Grania, Miguel, and Yanis for the presentations this morning. I hope people found it informative. If anybody, as I say, has more questions, please get in contact with us through the website, and we'll get the answers back to you as quickly as possible. So thanks again, everybody, for dialing in, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.